Discovered, how a poor cleaner's hidden phrase exposed an arrogant CEO's million-dollar loss. Martha wiped the gleaming floor of the corporate office, her heart heavy with worries for her kids. Living paycheck to paycheck as a single mother was no easy feat yet. As she polished the pristine floors of the luxury building, she held on to her father's words, "Neighbors lift each other up." They echoed in her mind, spurring her to press on through exhaustion. The lights flickered above her, reflecting her determination like stars in a night sky, each one representing a hope she harbored for her family's future. On that ordinary evening, a hushed conversation from the far end of the room caught her attention. Richard Lane, the aloof CEO, and his assistant discussed plans to cut a vital support program for marginalized workers. Something snapped inside Martha. This wasn't just another corporate decision, it would affect friends and neighbors, parents who fought to provide for their families just like her. The pulse of her anger surged. She remembered her dad marching bravely in World War II, fighting for those who couldn't fight for themselves. She could hear him whispering in her heart, "Always stand up for what's right." With trembling hands and a racing heart, she gathered her courage, shifting from a mere cleaner to a fierce advocate. The polished office felt foreign, yet it charged her resolve. Martha approached Richard, her voice steady, but her throat felt tight as she began, "I overheard your plans. Eliminating that program will hurt so many people." Richard turned, brows furrowed in disdain. "You're a cleaner," he replied with a wave of his hand, dismissing her in a heartbeat. "I know what's best for my business, not you. Stick to your job." His words were like ice water, splashing over her fiery resolve. But with Richard's condescending tone resonating in her ears, something inside Martha ignited even more. She realized she couldn't back down now. Her heart raced as she relayed the experience to friends in the neighborhood, her voice steady but her hands trembling. What started as a simple conversation spread like wildfire. Neighbors joined her cause, united against Richard's callousness. It was more than just them, it became a movement, a fight against injustice in their small yet vibrant community. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the town pushed back against Richard's decisions, Martha felt the weight of responsibility settle upon her shoulders. The air around the impending town hall meeting thrummed with tension. Was she truly ready to face Richard again? Doubts gnawed at her. Will anyone truly listen to a cleaner? Yet, her father's teachings reminded her to do what's right. As she stood at the podium, glancing at the faces staring back at her, anxious, hopeful, and filled with a shared purpose, the weight of their hopes bore down on her. With Richard's arrogant demeanor just feet away, Martha prepared to speak. She could sense the crowd's anticipation, but as she locked eyes with him, uncertainty flickered. The future of her community was on the line. What would she say? Would she finally find her voice, or would she let fear silence her once more? The tension coiled around them, leaving everyone breathless. Martha stood at the podium, her heart pounding like a drum. The room was a sea of faces, some familiar, some not, all filled with a blend of hope and fear. Richard shifted uncomfortably, his expression a mixture of annoyance and surprise. She took a deep breath, willing her hands to stop shaking. "I'm here to speak for the ones who can't. For the parents who work 2 jobs just to keep a roof over their children's heads," she began, her voice steadying. "That program you want to cut? It's a lifeline. It means meals for their kids, safety for their families." Martha could see nods from the crowd. Encouragement flooded through her, reminding her of every late night spent cleaning, every moment spent worrying about bills. The familiar scent of the polished wood served as a reminder of why she was there. Richard raised an eyebrow, clearly unamused. "And I'm supposed to care about a few struggling families? "This is business, Martha," he interjected, his tone dismissive, trying to undermine her resolve, but her father's words echoed louder now, "Always stand up for what's right." She was no longer just the cleaner, she was a voice for the voiceless. "You think it's just business?" she retorted, suddenly bold. "What if it was your family? What if it was your mother or your child struggling to make ends meet?" The crowd murmured, a collective tension shifting in the air like a charged current. Martha could feel the momentum building. She pressed on. "This isn't just numbers on a spreadsheet. It's people. It's families like mine and yours. When you cut that program, you're cutting our hope." Richard's face hardened, but Martha could see a flicker of uncertainty in his eyes. Maybe he didn't expect her to fight back. With each word, she felt lighter, as if the burdens she carried were being shared among everyone in that room. "We deserve support. We deserve respect. Don't you see? Together, we could make this community shine brighter than any corporate profit margin. So I'm asking you, I'm begging you to reconsider." Things shifted, heads turned, whispers spread. Some members of the audience started clapping, then others joined in. Martha's heart soared. They believed her. She was no longer alone in this fight. As cheers and applause erupted, Richard's face twisted in anger, and for the first time, he looked vulnerable. "Enough!" he shouted, trying to regain control. "This is ridiculous. You think you can sway me with emotions? I have a business to run." But Martha wasn't finished. "You think power comes from wealth? Your arrogance blinds you. Real leadership comes from understanding and empathy. If you cut that program, it's not just numbers, it's lives." As she stepped back from the podium, feeling the rush of exhilaration melt into uncertainty, she knew the fight was far from over. The room buzzed with energy, but the looming question remained. Would the community rally strong enough to challenge Richard, or would his corporate power quash their voices before they could truly unite? Martha searched the sea of faces, each expression carrying the weight of hope and anxiety. As Richard's eyes burned with defiance, Martha wondered would she and her neighbors have the strength to hold him accountable. The moment felt pivotal, charged with potential. What would be the next step? Would they find a way to mobilize their movement, or would fear take over once more? The applause faded, but the energy in the room crackled with unspent tension. Martha stepped away from the podium, her heart still racing. She had awakened something powerful, a spirit that had long been dormant, but uncertainty clawed at the edges of her mind. The crowd had responded, but would it last? Richard's anger hung thick in the air. He shot her a glare that could cut glass. "You will regret that," he hissed, more to himself than to her. Martha could sense his discomfort, and she wondered if the tide was truly turning. As she walked down the aisle toward her friends, she felt like a warrior returning from battle. They embraced her, urging her to stay strong. "You did it, Martha. That was amazing." Lydia beamed. "We've never had anyone speak for us like that before." "Yeah," Jason added, his voice low with concern, "but he won't just let this go. We need to have a plan." Martha nodded, her mind racing. She understood that they couldn't just rely on one moment of courage. "We need to touch base with everyone who supports us," she said, feeling a sense of determination rising within her. "We have to organize. There's power in numbers." Another wave of applause erupted from the back of the room, and Martha turned to see dozens of people standing, clapping, their expressions a mix of defiance and hope. It seemed like a collective awakening. Richard's face darkened as he surveyed the room, his grip on the podium tightening. "Listen up," he barked. "This is not over. You think you can sway me with your emotional speeches? I have business interests at stake." His words dripped with disdain, as if suggesting no one could possibly understand the stakes involved, but Martha stood tall. "You don't understand us, Richard. You think your wealth can shield you. That doesn't make you a leader. It makes you a coward." The crowd gasped, surprised at her boldness, but they quickly rallied behind her. She hadn't just spoken for them, she had ignited a flame. Let us take it to social media. Let us make sure everyone knows how the community is standing strong against corporate greed, Lydia shouted, enthusiasm breaking through the tension. The idea took root, spreading like wildfire among them. In that moment, decisions were made. Plans formed. They would gather stories, testimonies from real families, the very people Richard intended to cast aside. They would turn their fears into a movement, share their pain, and amplify each voice until it became thunder. As they left the building, Martha felt a rush of adrenaline. The seed of resistance had been planted, and she could see it beginning to sprout in the faces around her. But doubt crept in. What if they couldn't sustain the momentum? What would happen when Richard fought back? That evening, Martha gathered in the corner of their local diner with her allies. Faces lit by the warm glow of hanging bulbs, they discussed their strategy, hands gesturing with urgency. But as she spoke of their vision, one question lingered in her mind. How long could they keep this united front? Would their resolve hold against the storm that Richard would undoubtedly unleash? Little did they know, that storm was already brewing. As they exited the diner, a faint shadow caught Martha's attention, a figure huddled at the edge of the parking lot, eyes glinting in the dim light. Someone was watching them. The next chapter was unfolding, and everything hung in the balance. Would they be ready to face whatever Richard unleashed, or would they find themselves torn apart at the seams? Martha shivered, a chill running down her spine as she caught the silhouette lingering near the diner. Her heart raced again, but this time it was more than from adrenaline, it was pure fear. The figure shifted, revealing a hooded face that seemed both familiar and foreign, like a ghost from an unwanted past. "Guys, wait!" She called out to her friends, who were already a few steps ahead. They turned back, concern etched on their faces. "What's wrong?" Lydia asked, her brows knitting together. "Someone's watching us," Martha whispered, pointing towards the figure. Just then, it turned abruptly, fading further into the shadows. Her breath hitched as her instincts screamed at her to retreat. But she couldn't show fear, not now, not when she had finally found her voice. "I'll go check it out," Jason said, ever the brave one. He marched toward the shadows, mouth set in determination. "Stay here. Are you crazy?" Lydia protested, grabbing his arm. "It could be Richard's people." "I can handle it," he insisted, pulling away. Martha's anxiety swirled. They couldn't afford to break ranks now. She darted after Jason, her gut twisting. The parking lot echoed with the sound of their footsteps, the crunch of gravel beneath their shoes. As Jason approached the spot where the figure had been, it dawned on him, it wasn't just any stranger. "Is that?" he began, squinting into the darkness. "Look out!" Martha shouted as movement came from the shadows, a dash towards them. Jason sprang back, fists clenched, but then the figure stepped into the light, revealing a disheveled woman, her hands trembling but her eyes fierce. "Irene?" Martha gasped, both surprised and relieved. She hadn't seen her old neighbor in months, not since the layoffs had forced her to move away. "I heard you were making waves," Irene said, her voice trembling slightly but laced with urgency. "I need to talk. It's important." Martha glanced at Jason and Lydia, who were just as bewildered. "About what?" "The plan, the protests. Richard's hiring people to dig up dirt on you. He wants to crush this movement before it starts." Martha's heart sank. She had known Richard was powerful, but this felt like the punch in the gut that made it real. They had only just begun and already there were threats looming over them. "Do you have proof?" Lydia asked, her teeth biting down on her lower lip. Irene nodded, pulling a crumpled piece of paper from her jacket pocket. "I overheard them talking. He has inside information, something he thinks will ruin you." "What is it?" Martha demanded, her voice steady, though inside she felt like she was crumbling. "Something about a public statement, a hidden contract that could expose him." A cleaner you know mentioned a phrase, something that could turn the tide in your favor. Martha's mind raced. If they could expose Richard's secrets, it could shift the momentum. But with Richard already onto them, time was not on their side. Okay, we need to get to work fast, Martha declared, adrenaline pumping through her veins again. Tell us everything you know. As they huddled closer, sharing whispers under the streetlight, determined to forge a path to safety and victory, Martha felt the weight of their mission settling on her shoulders. Failure wasn't an option anymore. But just as they began mapping out steps, a car's headlights swept across the parking lot, illuminating the scene. Martha's heart sank with recognition. The imposing vehicle belonged to Richard. We need to go, she said urgently, adrenaline coursing through her body. They turned, ready to bolt. What secrets were hidden in that contract? What consequences awaited them as they stepped deeper into this fight? The questions loomed large, paralyzing them with uncertainty. As they fled into the night, the reality loomed overhead. They were racing against time and an unseen enemy. Seconds felt like hours as they vanished into the darkness, not knowing what fate awaited them next. Martha ran, her breath quickening with every step. Behind them, the faint rumble of Richard's car engine broke through the silence, urging her onward. The night was thick with tension, shadows looming like silent witnesses to their escape. Where do we go? Jason panted, glancing over his shoulder. His eyes were wide, reflecting the fear that gripped them all. Down to the river, Martha suggested, trying to ignore the weight of panic anchoring her heart. We can hide among the trees until we figure out what to do next. Lydia nodded, her grip tightening around the strap of her bag. Irene followed close behind, her silhouette barely visible as they zigzagged through the winding streets to the riverfront. Once they reached the bank, they paused for a moment, gasping for air. The liquid surface glistened under the starlight, a stark contrast to the chaos churning within them. Martha turned, her thoughts racing faster than her heart. What did you hear, Irene? She asked, recalling the urgency in Irene's voice. We need every detail. Irene swallowed hard, her hands trembling slightly as she pulled another paper from her pocket, a faded document that looked like it had been handled too many times. This was one of the filings Richard didn't intend for anyone to find. It speaks of a deal that could shake things up. But what do we do with it? Lydia pushed. Even if we have this paper, how do we make it work for us? Martha weighed their options, glancing back down the path they had just come from. She could sense Richard and his men were getting closer. We need to expose him, she said, resolute. We go public. But we need a plan and a safe avenue to share this. But what if it gets intercepted? Jason interjected, worry creasing his brow. He's bound to have eyes everywhere. We can't trust anyone. Martha felt a flicker of doubt, but she couldn't let it overpower her. We'll use an anonymous tip to the news. A whistleblower. If there's anything he's hiding, people will be interested. Irene's face brightened with a glimmer of hope. I can help set that up. I have contacts who connect with local reporters willing to take risks if we can get them the right information. Martha nodded, appreciation flooding her. Despite the fear enveloping them, there was strength in unity. Then it's settled. We'll draft a message and get it to them within the next few hours. Once it's out, he can't take it back, Jason said, steel creeping into his resolve. Just then, something in the distance caught Martha's eye. There, around the bend of the river, flickered a light. It was quick, almost ghostly, but enough to send the hairs on the back of her neck standing up. What is that? Lydia's voice trembled. Only one way to find out. Martha's heart raced again, more from curiosity now than fear as she moved toward the light, beckoning the others to follow. They crept closer, their footsteps barely making a sound against the damp ground. As they rounded the corner, the source of the light was revealed, a small cabin, old and weathered, barely standing in the moonlight. The glow emanated from a lantern hanging by the door. This is unexpected. Irene whispered. What if it's bad news? Jason questioned, scanning the surroundings nervously. For all we know, it might be the perfect opportunity. Martha stepped closer, drawn in by a nagging instinct. Memories tugged at her stories of hidden treasures, forgotten places. Just as she reached for the cabin door, a voice rang out from the shadows behind them. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Martha froze, her heart skipping a beat. They weren't alone. What lay behind that door? And who else knew about this place? The night was thick with mystery and the sense of a looming confrontation. The stakes were higher than ever, but they had come too far to turn back now. What new truths awaited them just beyond the threshold? Martha turned slowly, her heart pounding as she faced the stranger. The figure emerged from the shadows, tall and imposing, a flicker of anxiety raising the hair on her arms. He was dressed in dark clothing, his face partially obscured by the low brim of a hat. "Who are you?" she demanded, trying to keep her voice steady. Her friends hung behind her, a physical wall of support, but even they looked uncertain. "Easy now," the man replied, his tone cool and casual. "I'm a friend. Or at least I could be." He stepped closer, the lantern light illuminating parts of his face, revealing a scruffy beard and sharp features that looked worn beyond his years. "But you shouldn't be here. Not now, not with him on your tail." "Richard?" Irene asked, her eyes wide. "What do you know?" The man hesitated, a shadow flickering across his expression before he spoke. "I know plenty. Enough to get you all into more trouble than you can handle." He shifted his weight as if he might stride away. Instead, he leaned in a little closer, eyes darting around as if checking for eavesdroppers. "But knowing isn't enough. You need to act. Fast." Martha's instincts told her to run. Yet her curiosity pushed her to stay. "We're trying to expose him. Can you help?" The man chuckled, but there was no humor in it. "Exposing him is one thing. Surviving the fallout is another." He looked over his shoulder, anxiety etched into his features. "You think you're the first to challenge him? You don't know what you're up against." "What's your name?" Lydia asked, stepping forward. There was a steadiness to her that seemed to calm the moment. "Call me Noah," he said, his gaze sharpening. "And if you're serious about this, you need to listen. The paper you have," he gestured towards Irene, "it's not just dangerous. It's a ticking time bomb. If it falls into the wrong hands, what do you mean?" Jason frowned, still clutching his bag tightly. "Richard's got a lot of dirty secrets tied up in that deal. You hand that document over to a journalist without taking precautions, and it could backfire. You'd be putting your lives at stake." He paused, waiting for his words to sink in. Fear flickered behind each of their eyes. "Sure, you want to stand up, but be ready for what comes after." "Then what do we do?" Martha pressed, feeling a surge of urgency. "We can't let him get away with this." "Then we play it smart," Noah said, nodding slowly, as if weighing his next words carefully. "We gather intel first. I have connections who know more about his operations. Find allies before you go public. Without a plan, you're all just targets." "We don't have time for that," Martha replied, frustration boiling beneath her surface. "He's in pursuit and we can't just wait for the perfect moment." Noah locked eyes with her, intensity radiating from his stare. "And that's exactly what he wants. Chaos distracts, it keeps people from seeing the truth. You need to decide if you want to fight or flee, because once you make this move, there's no going back." Just as they were about to respond, a distant sound shattered the silence, the unmistakable growl of an engine approaching. Richard was closer than ever, panic surged, and Martha hissed, "We have to go. Now." Noah sighed, glancing nervously down the path. "You're right." He pointed back towards the trees. "There's a path through the woods. It will take you to a safe spot, but you'll need to trust me." "Trust you?" Jason bleated, dread coloring his voice. "We just met you. Sometimes, you don't get to choose," Noah said sharply, as the sound of tires crunching against gravel grew ever louder. "But you better make a choice, and make it quick." Martha glanced at her friends, hesitating. They had come this far, but was it wise to follow a stranger into the dark? Behind them, the light of the approaching car flickered ominously, and then, with uncertainty weighing heavily in her chest, she made her choice. But would it lead them to safety or deeper into danger? Without waiting another moment, Martha spun on her heels and dashed toward the trees, her heart racing as her friends hurried behind her. The crunching leaves beneath their feet drowned out the sound of the approaching engine. At least for now, Noah led the way, moving swiftly but cautiously. The darkness swallowed them, an oppressive silence settling like a thick fog. Martha's mind raced. What were they running from? Who was this Noah, really? Are we safe here? Iron whispered as they ducked behind a thick bush. The shadows enveloped them, but even in the dim light, Martha could see the fear in her friend's eyes. "For now," Noah said, his voice steady. "But we have to keep moving. Richard will be scouring this area." "What's the plan?" Jason asked, his breath quickening. "How do we find these allies you mentioned?" Noah leaned close, his voice barely above a whisper. "I know a safe house, a place we can regroup and think this through. I've got contacts there who can help guide you." He glanced at Martha, determination sparking in his eyes. "It's not just about surviving tonight. It's about turning this around and making sure Richard can't threaten you or anyone else again." Martha nodded, anxiety bubbling in her chest but mixed with a glimmer of hope. "We have to be smart, then. No mistakes." "Right. Follow my lead." Noah took off again, and they followed, the branches scraping against their arms as they wound their way through the thick underbrush. Each crack of a twig felt like a deafening alarm, and Martha's pulse quickened with every step. "In the morning, once we're safe, we'll contact the journalist," she whispered, sharing her thoughts. "We need to take this straight to the press. They need to know what Richard is doing." "Only if it's safe," Noah reminded, glancing over his shoulder. "We can't spook him into action. He's got resources, and if he knows what you're up to, he'll come after you harder." "We just can't sit and wait," Martha said, frustration surging in her veins. "Lives are at stake. We have to act." "Acting hastily has its consequences," Noah warned. "Trust me, I've seen it too many times. We need to gather enough evidence to bring him down for good. No half measures." Just as he finished speaking, a distant voice shattered their murmurs. Richard was nearby, his voice echoing through the trees. "I know you're out there. You can't hide from me." Fear gripped Martha's heart, and she glanced at her friends, their faces pale and wide-eyed. "Keep moving," Noah urged, coaxing them into quicker steps. They stumbled through the woods, the shadows stretching ominously around them. Martha's mind was a whirlwind of thoughts. What if they couldn't find the safe house? What if Richard caught up to them? After what felt like an eternity, they finally broke into a small clearing dotted with moonlight. Noah halted. "We're close. Just a bit further." Martha caught her breath, glancing around, listening for any sign of pursuit. The sound of the engine had faded, but Richard's voice still clung to the air like a shroud. "Is it really worth it?" Lydia's voice quivered. "What if we're not prepared to face him?" "Then we need to get prepared," Martha replied, her own uncertainty echoing in her voice. "I won't let fear trap us. We can't let him win." "But what if it costs us everything?" Jason murmured, fear etched in his features. Silence hung heavy, their breath mingling with the cool night air. They were on the precipice of something huge, but what would it mean for them? Noah turned to them, eyes blazing with fervor. "This isn't just about you anymore. It's bigger than any of us." Martha nodded, drawing strength from his intensity. "Then we have to take that leap. We'll risk it for the truth, for everyone affected by Richard's greed." As they stepped forward into the unknown, Martha felt a spark of determination ignite within her. They were ready to face whatever lay ahead. But behind it all, doubt whispered, reminding her of the dangers lurking in the dark woods. How much were they truly willing to risk to bring Richard down, and would the price be too high? The moon hung high above them as they pressed onward. The safe house loomed in Martha's mind like a distant light, something just within reach but shrouded in fear and uncertainty. With every step, the crunch of the underbrush beneath their feet reminded them of the peril they were in. Noah treaded carefully, eyes scanning the surroundings with a practiced intensity. "Stay close," he murmured, stopping occasionally to listen for the sounds of pursuit. Each breath felt like a decision, a moment pregnant with possibility. "Do you really think we can do this?" Lydia asked, voice barely above a whisper. Her shoulders sagged, the weight of their situation visibly pressing down on her. "Take Richard down. He has everything, and we barely have each other." Martha's heart clutched at Lydia's words. Doubt nibbled at the edges of her resolve, but she shook her head, determined to banish it. "We have to believe we can. If we don't, then what's the point? We owe it to everyone he has hurt." "Right," Jason chimed in, trying to inject some confidence into the group. "If we can plan this right, maybe we can surprise him." Noah's gaze remained steady ahead, pinned on an outline that appeared through the trees. "We'll need to find the evidence first. Without it, we're just shouting into the void." As they approached what seemed like an old shed, Martha's pulse quickened. "This is it?" she asked, scanning the peeling paint and cracked windows. It wasn't much, but it might be their only lifeline. "Yes, it's not much, but it's safe enough for now," Noah replied, pushing the door open. It creaked ominously, echoing in the stillness of the night. Inside, the dim light revealed dusty furniture and cobwebs hanging in the corners. A shiver of unease skittered down Martha's spine. "What if Richard finds this place?" Iron asked, staring into the shadows with wide eyes. "He can't be here yet," Noah said, although he flipped on his flashlight as if searching for reassurance. "We need to regroup and plan. That's what matters." With a flutter of fear in the pit of her stomach, Martha walked further inside. "We're going to need to communicate. If we reach out for help, it might draw attention." "Just be smart about it," Noah cautioned, leaning against the wall. His tone was firm but gentle, suggesting he understood the weight of the choices ahead. "We can't act recklessly." The reality of their situation settled around them like a heavy fog. Richard's threats weren't just idle words, they were palpable danger that could envelop them at any moment. "Anyone else feeling completely overwhelmed?" Jason broke the silence, attempting a shaky smile. Amid the heaviness, Martha managed a small laugh. "Yeah, completely. But look, we're still standing here. Isn't that something?" "Something," Lydia echoed softly, a hint of hope igniting in her eyes. Noah straightened up. "Lydia makes a good point. Together, we're stronger. We have to stick together." Their eyes met, a tentative alliance forming in that dimly lit space. Martha felt the warmth of camaraderie surge through her. If the stakes were high, so too was their resolve. Suddenly, a sound splintered the air, a branch snapping sharply in the darkness outside. It was followed by fading footsteps. Martha's heart raced. What was that? Noah waved for silence, his expression turning serious. They held their breaths, straining to listen as more sounds crept closer, rustling leaves, a whispered voice. "Richard?" she whispered, panic creeping into her voice. Adrenaline surged through her, urging her to bolt for cover. "No, stay still." Noah's voice was steady, intense. But as they froze, Martha's heartbeat pounded in her ears, threatening to drown out the tension hanging like a lead weight between them. They were on the edge of something terrifying, caught between hope and danger. "Will we make it? Will we escape?" she thought, feeling the reality sink in. And right then, she knew this was a fork in their road. Each choice could cost them everything. The footsteps were intensifying, echoing like an alarm clock, demanding an answer. Did they stay and confront the threat head-on, or find a break in the shadows and escape? The choice hung in the air like a loaded gun, waiting for one brave soul to pull the trigger. Would they stand and fight, or flee into the unknown? Martha's breath stilled, her body tense as they all listened to the sounds creeping closer. Each rustle felt like a countdown, a heartbeat echoing in the silence. The darkness outside loomed and pressed in like a predator waiting to pounce. Noah took a step forward, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the gloom, illuminating their expressions: fear, determination, hope locked in a wavering balance. "We can't let him find us," he whispered urgently. "We need to decide." "Decide what? To fight or run?" Lydia's voice was unnaturally loud, carrying the weight of her terror. She glanced toward the door, then back at Noah, eyes wide like a deer caught in headlights. "Fight, if we can," Jason said, trying to suppress the quaver in his voice. "If we have a chance, we should try. But if we flee?" Martha felt the walls of the shed encroaching, air thickening around them. "But we can't just stand here and wait." Her voice cracked, betraying the anxiety boiling under her skin. Just as Jason was about to argue further, the door shifted, hinges creaking like a warning bell. The beam of Noah's flashlight flicked toward the entrance as shadows danced chaotically. A figure appeared, tall, imposing, unmistakably Richard. Martha's heart dropped. "Hide!" she hissed, darting to the nearest corner, pulling Lydia with her. They squeezed behind what looked like an old stack of crates, feeling the splintered wood bite into their skin. The others followed suit, hearts hammering wildly in their chests. Richard stepped inside, his silhouette framed by the light outside. "I know you're in here," he called, voice dripping with malice. "You think you can hide from me?" Martha clamped her hand over her mouth, willing herself to remain quiet. The air felt electric, charged with the tension of impending confrontation. She stifled the urge to peek out, but she could sense his presence, a dark energy filling the space. "I have no patience for games," Richard continued, shifting around the shed. "You have no idea what you're dealing with. I will find you, and when I do, it will be your end." A wave of anger surged within Martha, and she gritted her teeth, desperate to fight against the injustice. He was toying with them, using his power to instill fear. But despite that, a flicker of resolve ignited. They weren't going to let him have the upper hand without a fight. "Stay steady," Noah's voice was barely above a whisper, but it struck a chord of comfort in her. They were all together, even in this moment filled with dread. They shared a common goal, a shared burden. "I have to know we can use this moment," Noah grunted quietly. "We can catch him off guard. If we hold our breath and wait just a bit longer." But before he could finish, the shrill crack of splintering wood pierced the air. Richard had stepped directly onto one of the weak boards near the door, causing it to snap beneath his weight. "Come on," Jason urged, the fear palpable in his voice. "We have to move now." Noah didn't hesitate, trading glances with Martha that spoke volumes. With no more time to spare, Noah pulled them toward a back exit, a darkened window barely visible behind a veil of old tools and debris. Martha's heart beat rapidly in her chest as they climbed through the narrow opening, adrenaline flooding her veins. They spilled out into the cool night air, the weight of the shed now looming behind them like a fading nightmare. But the escape was only the beginning. Where to now? Lydia gasped, rubbing her arms as if chasing away the chill that came not just from the night but from the fear they had just faced. Noah turned, scanning the surroundings detailed with uncertainty. "We can't stop yet. We need to find cover away from here, away from him." As they moved deeper into the woods, shadows flickered at the edge of their vision. Glancing back, Martha felt the urgency intensify. "What if he is following us? Then we have to be quicker than him," Noah replied with fierce determination, their hearts pounded in a rhythm echoing the urgency of their escape. But as they plunged into the darkness, a new thought had begun to form in Martha's mind. They might have escaped for now, but could they truly outrun the man who knew their fears? And then, just ahead, a distant light pierced through the trees. Was it hope, or another trap set by Richard? "Keep moving," Noah urged, as they stumbled forward, each step echoing with uncertainty about what waited for them in the unknown. Would this light guide them toward safety, or into more danger? In that moment, Martha realized their journey was far from over. The path ahead seemed fraught with peril, but maybe, just maybe, a flicker of hope awaited them at the end of the darkened road. Would the light lead them to safety, or was it a beacon of their impending doom? The light flickered as they drew nearer, revealing a clearing illuminated by the warm glow of a small campfire. Relief washed over Martha, but still, her heart pounded like a drum echoing the uncertainty of their fate. The shadows danced around them, and the crackling of the fire blended with the whispers of the wind weaving through the trees. "Is this a safe place?" Lydia asked, her voice trembling as they approached the circle, nearly holding onto Martha's sleeve. "What if it's a trap?" Noah paused, scanning the area before stepping closer to the fire. "It's hard to tell. But we need to take a chance," he said, placing a protective hand on the back of Lydia's shoulder. "Let us hope for the best." Once they reached the fire's edge, Martha's eyes were taken by a group of familiar faces gathered around. Old friends, neighbors, and allies from the community had gathered as if drawn by an invisible thread. "Martha!" A voice called out. It was Sam, one of the local organizers. His eyes widened with surprise and concern. "Thank goodness you're safe." In that moment, relief battled with anxiety. "What are you all doing here?" Martha questioned, astonished. "We heard about what Richard was planning about you speaking out." Sam replied, urgency etching his words. "Your voice lit a fire in our community. We wanted to help." Martha's heart swelled. "Help? We've been gathering stories, evidence of the impact his decisions have had. We can't just stand back and let him take everything from us. It's time we unite," Sam insisted, passion rising in his voice. Around the fire, heads nodded with agreement, and Martha could see a renewed sense of purpose filling the air. This was no longer just her fight. This was about everyone, a collective stand against Richard and what he represented, greed and disregard for the people who made the community thrive. Feeling the surge of hope, Martha turned to Noah. "This is it. This is our chance to make a difference. We can't let Richard win." "Exactly. If we gather enough evidence, we'll expose him for who he really is. But we have to keep quiet." "Every move matters," Noah said, determination radiating from him. "Don't lose momentum. You've already sparked something extraordinary. Let us channel that." As they discussed their next steps, Martha took a moment to reflect. The weight of her father's words rang stronger in her heart. Neighbors lift each other up. It wasn't just a phrase anymore, it was a rallying cry. She was not alone, and neither was her community. Together, they were about to write a new chapter. "That needs to be our mantra," Martha declared, feeling her voice strong and clear. "Let us take this to social media, gather stories from everyone affected. We'll raise our voices and be heard." The group erupted in applause, a tangible wave of energy lifting the atmosphere. "Together!" they shouted, eyes shining with determination. As the flames flickered wildly under the stars, Martha felt invincible. The confidence surged through her, understanding that they were not just a group of individuals fighting against one man, they were a movement, a testament to resilience and unity. But then, the air shifted, a cold gust sweeping through. The unmistakable sound of an engine echoed in the distance, tightening the lid on the urgency surrounding them. "We've got to act fast," Noah urged, urgency lacing his voice. Come looking, I'll find a way to get this evidence to the press. But we need to make sure Richard doesn't catch wind of our plans." "Martha, you should lead the outreach," Sam suggested, stepping closer. "You're the voice everyone listens to now. You have the courage that ignited this. Turn that into action." Martha's heart swelled with purpose. This was the foundation upon which they would build their fight. Then let us do it. I'll gather the stories, and I'll reach out. The truth is on our side. If Richard thinks he can intimidate us, he's wrong. United by renewed purpose, they formulated a plan under the warm gaze of the campfire, stories to share, evidence to collect, and even a video campaign documenting their struggles. They were about to show Richard and the world that they would not be silenced, and that community could be their most powerful weapon. Through personal sacrifices and voices of strength, Martha imagined vibrant posts going viral on social media, a lightning bolt through the lies Richard had built. Hope glimmered brightly, a fire ignited in their hearts, each flame representing a family, a neighbor, and the will to fight back. As they prepared to step forward into the dawn, Martha closed her eyes, feeling the warmth of her neighbors around her. Armed with courage, they would face whatever came their way. Richard's reign would meet its match through the solidarity of their community. In that moment, she whispered to herself, "We will rise." And the echoes of her father's words soared high above, wrapping around them like a warm embrace, reverberating with every heartbeat. Together, they were powerful, a force against darkness bound to shine brighter than any corporate prophet ever could. "Let us bring the fight to him," Martha declared, lifting her chin with unwavering resolve. "He may have tried to silence us, but now we will be heard." And with that, they fueled the flames of their movement, ready to dismantle the walls Richard had built, one story at a time. The fight for truth, dignity, and community was just beginning, and they would not back down. As the first rays of dawn peeked through the trees, illuminating their path, Martha knew that victory was in their grasp, and they would take it together. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories, leave a like now to feed the algorithm, comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait not even one more second to share. True fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.